Before I get into the review of Smackdown Live for August 2nd, I want to get this whole thing out the way because I do not want my major issue of this show to pretty much be the main platform that I go on. So I'm going to separate this entire thing from my overall review and go into it with a complete clean slate. Now, the one thing that really does piss me off about SmackDown is the women's division. They have absolutely no idea what to do with the women's division. You can tell. These women have received the brush off on more than one occasion. From Becky versus Natalya last week to now. Now, I love Eva Marie. Despite all the haters out there that says she can't wrestle, I actually did see her on SmackDown Live. She has improved leaps and bounds, which means that this woman needs to perform a lot more than all the other women on the roster because she has a lot more to prove. But unfortunately, she has not really been in any matches, so people automatically make the assumption that this chick can't wrestle. She's getting better. She really is. And I'm not saying it because I'm a fan of hers. I am saying it because I have witnessed it from my own eyes with my own two eyeballs. She is getting better. But despite Eva Marie, all the women that they have received from NXT on that roster has not even performed yet, has done nothing, squat for the last 2 episodes. And they have not acknowledged the fact that these women do not have a title, as well as what they're going to do with the women's division. This entire night, they received the brush off. From the match that was supposed to happen between Carmella and Natalya, never happened at all. It just, somehow Natalya came out of nowhere, beat the crap out of Carmella, and then that was it. Then we have Eva Marie feigning an injury. Don't get me wrong, that is the oldest trick in the book. That's considered a classic in my eyes, and I absolutely love it. But it does not serve her justice at all. That woman has a lot more to prove than anyone else on the roster, and not to mention, it absolutely, completely eclipsed Becky Lynch. It was sad. It's a complete travesty. I know that Shane McMahon as well as Daniel Bryan have a lot to work with because they have, well, less to work with. They have bare bones. I get it. You make do with the bare bones. You do what you got to do. I get it. But you cannot forget these women at all. When it comes to the women that came from NXT, they were in NXT for a reason. Say what you want about Carmella and her gimmick. The woman was amazing. Her match with Bayley was phenomenal. No pun intended and no relation to AJ Styles. But it was phenomenal. It was a match worth watching. Everybody that came up to where they were earned it. And sure, you can say whatever you want about Eva Marie. But the fact is she's still there. She's there for a reason. Especially now they're trying to revamp the women's division. Raw has a stacked card. I mean, not only a stat card, they have a stat roster as well as probably having a lot of stat card, probably leading on up to their own exclusive pay-per-view as well as the SummerSlam. But other than that, yes, SmackDown does have bare bones, but you have to consider everybody, not just the fact that these women are just there. They have a reason of being there. They have to have something to fight for, and they should have matches to where they have at least a good 5 minutes of performance time. Or more than that, at least 10. Good grief, they barely got 1. All I can say is it really does piss me off for the fact that they're trying to make something out of this women's division, but they're only doing it for Raw. If you want some competition, you make the women's division look good. NXT literally blows both shows out the freaking water. If you want to make an example, make one. But don't just sit on your hands, get a whole bunch of women because you have to, and just let them stay there and sit there in the back of the sidelines, collecting nothing. It's not like you're a football player or a basketball player and you're a second string basketball player, football player that still gets paid. These women get paid from their time. They get paid being on the air. If they're not on the air for that long or not performing for a certain amount of time, they're not going to get any money. That's not fair to them. Sure, some of these women actually did have maybe a few minutes on the screen, but that's not enough. All I can say is that if you want to make something out of this show, if you want to make something out of the women's division, do something with it. Just don't sit on your hands and allow it just to sit there and collect dust. Because tonight was an insult to all women. And this is just my personal opinion. And I'm trying to not have this tarnish the entire show, but this is a major pet peeve that has to be acknowledged first, because I am not in any way, shape, or form going to ignore this, and it should not be ignored. I'm hoping these women go on strike, and I'm hoping the fact that these ridiculous matches, so-called matches that they had tonight for these women, I hope these chicks go on strike. Seriously, and I hope these chicks try to go up on Raw. Even though they can't get there because their entire roster is stacked, but I would not be surprised if they try to go over to the other side, because they have nothing to fight for, they barely have any time in matches, and they don't get acknowledged at all. I'm hoping that they actually have that angle. I'm hoping that these chicks go out on strike and make it a complete sausage fest throughout the entire night. I'm waiting for that to happen, because it's ridiculous. It's an insult to all women. It's an insult to the women's division. It is definitely an insult to the women's revolution that they're trying to do now. I really hope they make it up next week. But other than that, guys, I am done ranting here. Let's get started with this review. Alright, I got that entire rant out the way because I did not want to be overly biased or overly upset and allow this to completely fog my glasses when it comes to the overall, I guess, opinion of this show. But the one thing I will say about SmackDown, despite my rants towards the women's division and what they're doing to it, this is far better, leaps and bounds, better than the first show. Now, I know that this is that I can't necessarily say that the show was better or whatever because it was the starter show. And of course, they're trying to find their voice. It looks like that's what they're trying to do, and they're getting there. I love the fact that they had the stats on the side of the screen to where we saw a little bit more about each performer, as well as where the performer is going towards the pay-per-view, where they're from, certain interesting, interesting tidbits about each performer. I thought it was great. I absolutely love that. It makes them feel more important. It makes them seem more important. And it makes it look like it's all about the wrestler. Now, when it comes to the opener of the show, man, how completely busted can you get when you have a television set in the back room? It's not even the back room. They were in a freaking garage. And they literally had the television set. They had a TV set where Shane O'Mac and Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton would sit there watching on the screen of what he did to Brock. Now, I love the continuation. I love the consistency that they have for that show. It's like watching Raw for like part 1 and then watching part 2 on Smackdown. I love the consistency of that. I enjoy that highly. And the fact that they got like a whole bunch of bodyguards and people to protect Randy Orton, I thought it was pretty cool. It made it seem like a big deal, extremely serious. I enjoyed that part. But yeah, of course, SmackDown does look a bit busted from some of their backstage scenes. But other than that, it's SmackDown. They have to build their way up. They're the underdog show. I got to expect that, so I decided not to have that as a big pet peeve of mine. And of course, you have The Miz coming out, and let's be honest with you, The Miz has done nothing with that title. I'm hoping he drops it at SummerSlam. He needs to, in the worst way, because he's done nothing with it. He's just been holding it like a glorified belt buckle. I hate to say it, but that's what he's been doing to it. But other than that, I absolutely enjoyed the show. It's a lot better than it was the first time around. The matches themselves actually were pretty decent. I love the main event. I thought the main event was great. There was a lot of heart with Dolph Ziggler. And also the segment, I guess the opening segment of the show with Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler. I enjoyed that because it showed how much heart that Dolph Ziggler has. And I mean how much Dolph Ziggler wants to be up in the limelight like he used to be. But Dean Ambrose, he kind of floats between a heel and a babyface. Well, yeah, pretty much a heel and a babyface, even though I consider him to be an anti-hero character. But he doesn't really stay that way. With an anti-hero character, you can give a crap what anybody thinks about you, and pretty much you have that big gray area when it comes to your own personal beliefs and your own mantra. And that seems like that's what Dean Ambrose goes by. So it fits his character fairly well. But when it comes to Dolph Ziggler, you know, he was pretty much the heel in this scenario. But that doesn't really bug me that much because it's freaking Dean Ambrose. You know, he's going to pretty much say whatever he wants and just go with it. I mean, that guy ad-libs more than I do. But other than that, I love the heart that came out of Dolph Ziggler. And even though Dolph Ziggler screamed to the top of his lungs like a child trying to prove something to his mom or dad, I absolutely enjoyed how much heart came out of him. And seeing how the fact that he was willing to put his number one contendership on the line to prove a point, good job. Good job. Way to actually build up a match. They did a great job with that. But, and speaking of, like, about the actual match itself, there was a lot of build between Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose's match at SummerSlam throughout pretty much the entire show. I kind of did love the Smackdown segment, but it had to be a little awkward. I don't know whether or not he's still with Renee, but that has to be awkward interviewing your boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. I don't know what their status is, but I do know that it was just kind of weird. The fact he just wasn't comfortable. I thought it was kind of cute, in my opinion. The fact he wasn't comfortable sitting down, they were like this far apart, and then all of a sudden they stood up and they were like right there. I thought that was cute. I thought that was kind of adorable. But Dean Ambrose definitely did kind of play the heel role there when he was talking to Renee. But then when he was outside in commentary, he kind of played the babyface role. It's like he has, I don't know, two personalities. It was kind of weird and a little bit off for me. But it wasn't terrible. It did stay with what it's supposed to stay with in a way. So I wasn't completely bugged by it. But I still feel bad that they still keep having these really awkward and uncomfortable Heath Slater segments. Seriously. When Heath Slater comes out, and the fact that he really wasn't drafted at all to either show was just embarrassing for him. I'm hoping that this doesn't become a thing, and I'm hoping that one day he'll stop. Because it's going to constantly keep getting beat up and beaten up by anyone that comes his way. Next week's going to get beaten up by Rhino. But we know that he's not going to win. He's not going to definitely win a contract, because I think he's actually going to be going to Evolve, I believe. That could be a possibility. I don't know. It's somewhat of a rumor floating around. But other than that, I would not be surprised he's not going to be there for a while. And speaking of someone who's not going to be there for a while, John Cena is not going to be there for 2 months. So we kind of know the outcome of what's going to happen with AJ Styles versus John Cena, because John Cena is going to take time off. I'm not sure if he's having surgery or if he's just going to take a brief break, because John Cena is now a part-timer. He's no longer a full-timer, but he actually did have an amazing promo. The guy is amazing on the mic, even though the entire segment itself was just completely awkward, very uncomfortable, and very stupid. And it seemed like that AJ Styles he went far beyond the Call of Duty to make people hate him. And that's just not going to work. I'm sorry. It just isn't going to work. And I hope that I hope they get that idea that AJ Styles is not going to be hated. People are going to like that guy. They're going to love everything he does. They're not going to want to hate him. But the awkward way he did it, I just hated that. I mean, oh my gosh. And yeah, they made fun of his soccer mom hair, even though I love his hair. Oh my gosh. It's the most beautiful hair I love hair on a guy. Well, not like hairy, but just like beautiful hair. Anyway. When it comes to AJ Styles not only is an amazing performer, he does have some decent mic skills. But the entire feud between John Cena and AJ Styles leading on up to not Battleground, but the pay-per-view before that, when they actually supposed to have a one-on-one, and then it ended up being like the club coming in, all I can say is that they had an amazing back and forth banter with that feud. The first time that they ever met in the ring, it was amazing. Ever since his debut from the Royal Rumble, and he actually was in the same ring with John Cena, it was just electric. Like, seriously, they were just back and forth banter. I loved every bit of it. Man, I didn't get that here. Like, seriously, I did not get that here. Not with this segment. This segment was just cringeworthy. I'm like, oh my gosh. I have seen so much better from these two. And the person that dominated the most was John Cena. Even though it was unnecessary for this to happen. John Cena can go over all by himself. When he came back after being injured, the guy who was hated pretty much all over this nation had more respect when he was in Wisconsin than any other time that guy has gotten respect. Which shows you that he doesn't need to have a heel or doesn't need to have anybody making a promo against the things he loves, because the guy can speak all by his freaking self. So the whole AJ Styles thing was ridiculous and pointless and pretty much period, and it just made AJ Styles look like an idiot. That's just me personally. But other than that, I'm still excited about a one-on-one going up against John Cena and AJ Styles at SummerSlam, even though the outcome is going to be, well, we kind of know that John Cena is not going to win. I mean, pretty much because he's going to be gone for 2 months. It doesn't make any sense for him to have a clean win with AJ Styles and then not show up. He's going to be gone for 2 months, which means he's going to put AJ Styles over. I'm honestly seeing how it's going to happen, but even though I might be right or wrong, I'm still excited about how the match is going to be, because we've seen them perform before. They're amazing in the ring together. It's still going to be an amazing match, even though the outcome might seem predictable, at least in my eyes. But other than that, the other matches of the night were somewhat forgettable. Let's be honest, they were. Fandango versus Randy Orton? Really? I was waiting for Febreze to be swept away or blown away or however ridiculous pun I can think of at this point. But unfortunately, I didn't get any of that because Brock Lesnar showed up. I laughed so hard. It was hilarious seeing Brock Lesnar show up because everybody was so freaking scared of him that they didn't even want to come anywhere near him. So they were like just standing in a distance, like saying, please move, please leave. No, we don't want to hurt you. No, we can't hurt you. We know you can hurt us, and we just want you to leave. Can you go now? That's what I saw. I was just wondering can you imagine the pans filled with crap from all of the security guards? They probably crapped their pants when they saw Brock Lesnar, and I was just straight up laughing. It was hilarious. It was the funniest moment of the night for me. But moving on down to the main event. Now, the main event between Bray Wyatt and Dolph Ziggler was interesting. Bray Wyatt came in there saying, and people cheered. People honestly wanted to see Bray Wyatt versus Dean Ambrose again. In a way, I kind of wanted to also, because it would be something completely different. Who would have ever thought that Dolph Ziggler can lose against Bray Wyatt? If that would have happened, that would have had an amazing outcome. It would have made everybody's jaw drop to the floor. But we didn't really get that. I didn't see it coming. But the fact that Dolph Ziggler had to play dirty in order to actually win, that's a whole nother thing. But I don't think that the Wyatts are done with them yet. I don't. I think the Wyatts are going to be coming after both of them, probably after SummerSlam. And that should be interesting, because we still got Eric Rowan. Eric Rowan is still with Bray Wyatt on Smackdown. So you have the two of them. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see them going after them a little bit later on. But other than that, my overall thoughts of the show is this. This show was pretty good. Leaps and bounds a lot better than last week's. Besides my gripe and my rant that I had at the beginning of this entire episode, this show did a good job in promoting some of the matches at SummerSlam. Even though the other matches were completely forgettable and they had to find a way to tie everything in, they did a good job with continuity. An excellent job with that. Especially when it came to Heath Slater. I thought that was somewhat funny, but then kind of uncomfortable because of Heath Slater not being picked. But other than that, I think this SmackDown was leaps and bounds a lot better than last week. And I'm absolutely hopeful that this SmackDown is going to be a lot better than it was before. I think that SmackDown is going to probably be competition maybe down the line, maybe within a few months, several months, not that quick. But I'm very hopeful about the show. But other than that, guys, I want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel about SmackDown and whether and how you felt about the show, how you would book things. I want to know. I want to hear what you guys think. And also, for those that care about the women's division, I want to hear your opinion about that as well. I'm done here. Ninja Girl 30 signing off. Peace out. Later.